paper money, and gold as symbols, sent the image or concept of the self in the deep recesses of the brain computer, as programmed through the total environment interacting with the genetic and constitutional base, determines all patterns of symbols, logic, thought, speech, action, emotional response, and perception in all areas of people activity. As such, the self-image is the core from which all else evolves in the brain computer. Thus, the deep self-image is the key concern of the psychiatrist. Why should one focus on deep symbols? What do we achieve through symbol analysis and understanding? Truth cannot be concealed. Truth is that which is specific energy in the universe. It literally begs to be revealed, especially when hypocrisy and deceit, distorted statements of that which is, move towards domination. Truth then reveals itself, speaks and surfaces through the symbol. The symbol is the form through which a highly dynamic idea or concept can tunnel underground through the unconscious to be expressed. The symbol is the product of environmental energy condensation. Schwaller de Lubitsch, in his book Symbol and the Symbolic, explains that true progress in human thought can be made only if we call upon the symbolizing faculty of human intelligence, the faculty developed and refined in the temple culture of ancient Egypt and reflected in the hieroglyphics that have come down to us undisturbed. The mentality of ancient Egypt helps to free us from our present intellectual impasse, while symbolism must be recognized for what it is, the intuitive means of overcoming the limitations of reason and achieving a higher humanism. Schwaller de Lubitsch also indicates, Egypt and other cultures grounded in the symbolic method were indeed through symbols, educating the neurological structures of the brain to maintain an active, conscious connection not only between the bilateral lobes of the cerebral cortex, but also with the impulses and subliminal information received from the ancient and deeper limbs and reptilian centers, so that these aspects of our nature could be integrated into the activity of our reasoning mind. Symbols and the decoding of symbols has yet to become a major area of interest and study in Western civilization. This is regrettable at one level, yet very understandable at a deeper level. Decoding the symbol is an activity not unlike that of the physical scientist who places matter or living substance under the lens of a light microscope or an electron microscope for the purpose of gaining deeper insight into and understanding of the structure and function of that matter. In both instances, decoding the symbol and examining matter under a microscope, the process of investigation serves to refine our knowledge and influence our behavior in the universe. Decoding the symbol also leads to a deeper understanding of the self, and so frees the self. There are few who would argue that in-depth knowledge is not superior to knowledge of the surface alone. The process of decoding and visualizing the symbol does not require the aid of a device beyond the human body, such as the microscope. Such a process requires first and foremost the activity of the right cerebral hemisphere and those sensory neurochemical channels that feed primarily into this area of the human brain computer. As a theoretical extension, I am convinced that the neuropigment melanin plays a crucial role in this right cerebral hemisphere sensory neurochemical system. Melanin acts as an energy data absorbing biological pigment in the nervous system, leading specifically to the right cerebral hemisphere. Melanin as a neuropigment has the capacity to absorb levels of energy activity outside the spectrum of energy frequencies processed by the 5 individual senses recognized in Western civilization, the civilization evolved by the white-skinned collective who lacks any substantial quality of melanin skin and nervous system pigmentation, and likewise, who has a lesser energy data gathering capacity. Let us now examine some views on money. For the love of money is the root of all evils. It is through this craving that some have wandered away from the faith and pierced their hearts with many fangs. Ernest Becker, in Escape from Evil, states, one of the fascinating chapters in history is the evolution of money. All the more so since it has yet to be written. One of the reasons it isn't written is that the origin of money is shrouded in prehistory. Another is that its development must have varied, must not have followed a single universal line. Still a third reason touches closer to home. Modern man seems to have trouble understanding money. It is too close to him, too much a part of his life. As someone once remarked, the last thing a fish would discover is water, since it is so unconsciously and naturally a part of its life. But beyond all of this is still sacred, still a magical object on which we rely for our entrance to immortality. Or, put another way, money is obscure to analysis because it is still a living myth, a religion. How else explain that we do not yet have a single history of money, despite the massive collection of anthropological and historical monographs, the observations by Plato and Aristotle themselves, those by Augustine on money fetishism, the insights of Marx, and now, finally, of modern psychoanalysis? Becker also writes, "Death is overcome by accumulating time-defying monuments. These accumulations of stone and gold make possible the discovery of the immortal soul, Death is overcome on condition that the real actuality of life pass into these immortal and dead things. Money is the man. The immortality of the estate or a corporation resides in the dead things which alone endure." In Life Against Death, Norman O. Brown asserts, "No wonder economic quality is beyond the endurance of modern democratic man. The house, the car, the bank balance are his immortality symbols." Or, put another way, if a black man moves next door, it is not merely that your house diminishes in real estate value, but that you diminish in fullness on the level of visible immortality, and so you die. In his essay, The Ontogenesis of the Interest in Money, Sandor Ferenczi states, "Every psychoanalyst is familiar with the symbolic meaning of money that was discovered by Freud. Whenever the archaic way of thinking has prevailed or still prevails, in the old civilizations, in myths, fairy tales, superstitions, in unconscious thinking, in dreams and in neuroses, money has been brought into the closest connection with filth." Ferenczi outlines in some detail his own view of the transformation of anal erotic interest into monetary interest, wherein the individual ends by being able to possess something of color that has value, is hard, it neither has odor nor causes the person who touches it to be soiled or dirty. Edmund Bergler, author of Money and Emotional Conflict, states, "Money neurosis can be found in every country, every culture, every group of any given society. Therefore, it cannot be used to prove anything against our system of free enterprise. For money, neurosis is a byproduct arising independently of any external system." In sharp contrast to the above quotations and viewpoints on money, Ernest Becker, in his work Escape from Evil, relates an African view of money. Recently, I've heard Bantu of the old school say, with reference to our modern products, the Europeanized evolus, "These are men of Lupeto. They have explained to me that the Europeanized young men of ours know nothing but money, that it is the only thing possessing any value. For them, they give up their Bantu philosophy for a philosophy of money. Money is their one and only ideal, their end, and the supreme ultimate norm, regulating their actions, everything has been destroyed by this new value, this modern universal rule of conduct, Lupeto." These intriguing remarks can be understood only when we probe deep beneath the surface to comprehend what money represents at the unconscious level of the symbol, a level far deeper than ever suspected by Sigmund Freud. To fully understand, one must examine the depth of the Western self-image and its origin. No clearer statement of the Western self-concept need be found than that expressed by essayist Samuel Langhorne Clemens, known to all as Mark Twain. In Skin Deep, one of a collection of essays entitled The Damned Human Race, Twain described a gathering of people in India, commenting on their costumes and complexions as follows. "The company present made a fine show, an exhibition of human fireworks, so to speak, in the matters of costumes and comminglings of brilliant color. I could have wished to start a rival exhibition there, of Christian hats and clothes. It would have been a hideous exhibition, a thoroughly devilish spectacle. Then there would not have been the added disadvantage of the white complexion. It is not an unbearably unpleasant complexion when it keeps to itself, but when it comes into competition with masses of brown and black, the fact is betrayed that it is endurable only because we are used to it. Nearly all black and brown skins are beautiful, but a beautiful white skin is rare, where dark complexions are masked. They make the whites look bleached out, unwholesome, and sometimes frankly ghastly. I could notice this down south in the slavery days before the war. The splendid black satin skin of the South African Zulus of Durban seemed to me to come very close to perfection. Having heard from a 19th century American essayist, let us now listen to a similar statement published in the final quarter of the 20th century. Roger C. Sharp, in How to Get a Great Tan, explains, "It's time to feel alive again. To shake off winter's draining hold and get out into the reviving glow of the summer sun. It's also the season when there are two kinds of people, those who tan and those who wish they could. This summer, don't be left out in the shade. It's time for you to glow with a healthy tan. From Memorial Day to Labor Day, you'll be on display. That means trimming off those excess pounds and donning a new skin you'll be proud of. Let's face it, a great tan makes you look younger, sexier, more relaxed. A bit of color can take you a long way. It will make you feel better about yourself. And it will make others look at you twice, especially when there's more of you that can be seen. Yet, as with most good things in life, getting a great tan is a double-edged sword. For most of us, who have only weekends or a brief summer vacation, there is never enough time to spend in the sun. So when we do get out there, we tend to overdo a good thing. The consequences are rapidly felt. We stumble back to our homes and offices, burned to a crisp. What promised to be a gorgeous tan looks more like a patchwork or streaks and splotches. Our earlobes are tender and the backs of our knees are sore. For the next week, we are plagued with flaking skin in the bedsheets. We itch. We don't feel young and we don't feel sexy. We wanted a great tan and we come home a mess. Surely there's a better way. There is. In the pages that follow, we've tried to give you some good, practical advice based on on-the-spot research and talks with medical experts. We openly discuss the positive aspects of tanning as well as the dangers. So this summer, be smart. Find out what happens to you in the sun before you go out there. You can get a great tan more effectively. If you're a natural for tanning, you'll pick up pointers that will help you get and keep a better tan. And if you're the type who never seems to be able to catch the rays, this summer could be your turning point. The same author continues in the chapter Getting the Perfect Overall Tan. Something you should keep in mind if you decide to go nude this summer is that there may be parts of your body that have never been exposed to anything stronger than the bathroom light. You don't want to rue the day you went back to basics, so some common sense advice is in order. Don't try to overdo your time in the sun. Keep your initial tanning time down to a minimum. Gently break in those formerly unexposed parts of your body to the idea that this is their year in the sun. Extra sunscreening for these areas are also in order to prevent any drying and unnecessary burning. After all, what's the point of sooning all over if one part of you gets golden brown and another bright red? So be careful. Take things a day at a time. Melanin is the black pigment which permits skins to appear other than white. Melanin pigment coloration is the norm for the human family. If there are non-white readers who disagree with this presentation of white rejection of the white skin self, may I refer you to the literature on the currently developing sun tanning parlors. In a Newsweek article entitled 90-Second Sundars, there is a picture of a heavily tanned girl clad in a bikini swimsuit. Under the picture, the caption reads, "Los Angeles tanning booth, brown at any price." The article concludes, "For growing hordes of Sundamp worshippers, however, it seems to be a tan at any cost. Something is going to get all of us one day, so why worry about it?" Rationalizes Robert Duncan, manager of a fast food restaurant in Costa Mesa, Calif. "If tanning is going to kill me, at least I'll be a good-looking corpse." The above testimonies, from white persons writing perhaps a century apart, manifest the white collective's dissatisfaction with the white complexion. Likewise, a pervasive and strong desire on the part of the white global collective to have skin that looks otherwise, skin that shines, skin that is satin, black or golden brown in color, skin that does not exhibit a melanin pigment deficiency, is articulated clearly. In addition, Western culture has a folk saying, "Clothes make the man," the implication being that the worth of the person is established only after her body is covered. This same symbolism was expressed unconsciously at a mass level at the height of the Watergate scandal, the only time in the history of America when a president was forced to resign because of shameful behavior. At the peak of this period of national shame, white males began to dart about naked, running across open spaces, exposing their naked white bodies and then hiding. This behavior, which was never decoded at deep levels, was called streaking. The behavior symbolically represented that in the white collective brain computer, the naked white body is equated with shame. Thus, when deep national shame is exposed to the world, there is a compulsion to expose the naked white body. There is also a parallel with the present increase in the practice of nudism in this area of the world, when America is experiencing a loss of power and prestige at national and international levels. At the time, America begins to reveal more and more of the naked white body. This pattern of increased white body exposure also includes the topless and bottomless bars that came into prominence following America's great shame in the loss of the Vietnam War. Now examine a dollar bill. Note that the original paper is basically white. On one side, the printing and engraving is done with green ink on white paper. On the other side, the printing and engraving is done with black ink on white paper. A major symbol on the dollar bill is also the African pyramid and the symbol of Osiris, the divine eye. Osiris was referred to as Lord of the Perfect Black. Now recall the familiar expression, money does not grow on trees. The surface implication is that money is not so readily available. At a deeper level in the Western psyche, the statement likens paper money to tree leaves. One side of that paper money is green, and the money is in turn referred to as greenbacks. To further decode the symbolism of paper money, one must understand that all paper money in Western culture is the symbolic equivalent of the proverbial fig leaves. Western artists always depict fig leaves as the objects used to cover the genitals of the white bodies of Adam and Eve, covering their nakedness, their bodily shame. The side of American paper money engraved and printed in black symbolically represents the black skin that the albinos or whites should have possessed, were it not for their genetic defect of albinism. Further, it is no accident in the present-day capital of the global white supremacy system, Washington, D.C., that the vast majority of the people in the city are black, and that the paper money is printed by a large majority of black workers. In other words, blackbacks are producing greenbacks, which could equally be referred to as blackbacks. For in the minds of the white collective, whites should have blackbacks instead of whitebacks, and they should not need greenbacks to cover whitebacks. A familiar realization causes whites to tan, as though the hue achieved through tanning is supposed to be their true color. This decoding allows the slang expression, frequently used by blacks in America, "give me some skin," to be placed in a more meaningful perspective. On the surface level, this expression means, "give me your hand," skin touching skin, to shake as a greeting. At yet another level, the implication is, "give me some money." Blacks living amongst the white collective have internalized unconsciously the symbolic equation of paper money with the covering for the degraded white skin. In fact, albinism is the origin for the unconscious development of this white equation of paper money with skin. In their book, Money Madness, Herb Goldberg and Robert T. Lewis state, studies of self-made wealthy men, for example, show an extremely high incidence of parental death and parental divorce, which resulted in a high degree of insecurity early in life. Many of these men, as young boys, apparently set out to amass so much money that they would never be left stranded again. They also were faced with assuming adult responsibility while still children, and they tried to prove to themselves and others they didn't really need to depend on parents. Does this not parallel the experience of the rejected albino mutants who created Western civilization and culture? With the symbolism of money in the white supremacy culture decoded, the phenomena of gambling, monetary inflation cycles, and other behaviors present in all areas of the Western civilization can be better understood. Money, like the fig leaves, is the symbolic covering of white body shame, and is designed to give a sense of value when no value is present. Its immersion in shame and valuelessness operates at a level unavailable to conscious thought. Money is considered at surface levels of the white or Western psyche to have high value. However, because in deep reality money is designed to cover white body shame and represents shame, the real value of the money will always rise and then fall. The latter means that in reality money is worthless and debased. This reflects the fact that while whites are saying they are superior, they unconsciously feel inferior to the melanin-pigmented global majority. The concept of white skin superiority is the same as inflated money, worthless. Similarly, in the highly symbolic phenomenon of gambling, there is the attempt to get money because it presumably has high value. Yet the most common reality of gambling is not winning money, but losing money and being disgrace, revealing white body shame, literally and figuratively. By placing gambling in the context of the decoded symbolism of money, the suicides committed by whites who lost their money during the recent depressions can be explained. They had lost, albeit at unconscious levels, the covering for white body shame. Blacks and other peoples of color were not similarly affected, and not simply because they may not have had that much money to lose in the first instance. Psychologically, blacks and other persons with permanent skin melanin could handle better being without money because they have no fundamental body shame to cover. Decoding the symbolism of money also makes it possible to understand why Sigmund Freud and his followers associated money with fecal matter and filth, which are usually brown or black. The white psyche could not confront self-negation, and the sense of white body shame deeply enough to see that paper money is the cover for white body shame. That same white psyche then displaces the association of money with melanin pigment to associate money with the only other brown and black pigment manufactured in the human body, the pigment responsible for the color of fecal material, coprobilirubins. This discussion brings to mind a seminar I attended while training to become a child psychiatrist. The esteemed father of child psychiatry and the program director of the seminar, Dr. Reginald Laurie, concluded, while evaluating the case of a black child, that the reason this child hated himself was because he was the color of feces. Of course, my strong objections at the time did not change the basic logic of Freudian psychoanalytic theory, which many black professionals have learned by rote, internalized, and projected onto their black patients. What Dr. Laurie, following Dr. Freud, had done was state that melanin pigment was the equivalent of the coprobilirubins. It was easier for the white psyche to state consciously that it desired to be tan like fecal matter than to admit consciously a desire to have melanin pigment and to be like black people, whom whites in psychological compensation had to debase. Decoding the symbolism theory further explains the reason why some whites in their sexual practices like to be smeared with human excrement. And likewise, this decoding illuminates the meaning behind one of the most common forms of expression in the white culture, which is shit, or to refer to someone as a shithead. Also, it now should be more than crystal clear why, at unconscious levels in the white psyche, it is perceived that black and other skin-pigmented peoples do not need money like white people do. White people need paper money to cover white body shame, while black and other skin-pigmented peoples do not have the need of such covering. When blacks and other non-whites are struggling to obtain equal pay for work done equal to that of whites, they are struggling against this unconscious symbolism. As long as the system and culture of white supremacy remains intact, non-whites will not have the same money to work with as whites, and their money will not be able to do what money in the hands of whites is able to do. Because blacks and others with permanent melanin skin pigmentation do not feel a sense of white body shame, they do not have the same anxiety motivation to acquire money as does the white-skinned global collective. Although some have sought to attribute this lesser general motivation to genetic inferiority, a lack of intelligence, or laziness, these rationalizations cannot withstand deep analysis. The symbolism of gold in the white supremacy system is quite similar. Previously, I mentioned Mark Twain's reference to the splendid black satin skin of the South African Zulus, as well as Roger C. Sharp's question. After all, what's the point of sunning all over if one part of you gets golden brown and another bright red? And everyone in this culture is familiar with the many human lotions and creams that advertise their ability to help one acquire a golden tan. I therefore theorize that because, one, black and brown skin, with its natural oils glistening and gleaming in the sunlight, looks like gold, and two, that which was deeply desired more than anything else by the albino mutants in their white psyche, was to have melanin pigmented skin. Then the metal gold became the deeply unconscious symbol of the most desired substance in the entire global white supremacy system culture. Gold is then the symbol for melanin skin pigment in the white psyche. The possession of gold in the white psyche is the unconscious equalizer for the absence in whites of melanin. That is the reason mulattoes, or Semites of the Jewish religion, always were accused of having all of the money in gold. The symbolism of gold explains the most fundamental reasons that, for a considerable period of time, Western paper money was backed by the gold standard, which prevented general fluctuations in the value of paper money. Symbolically, the gold standard meant that melanin was and is the norm and standard for human beings. Presently, the world monetary system is on the dollar standard, but there are many Western national units pressuring for the return to the gold standard. The value of gold is tied unconsciously in the white collective brain computer to the power of the peoples who possess melanin in the world, the black, brown, red, and yellow peoples. When global events shift to indicate that white is not really superior, as in the Iranian hostage taking the white-skinned collective experiences, self-doubt and the deeply repressed sense of white genetic inadequacy begins to break through the apparatus of the white psyche. Then, the relative value of white skin and its symbolic cover drops, and the value of the melanin equivalent, gold, escalates as expressed by the value and cost of gold on the world market. It should be noted that as the value of gold moves up, the value of the paper monies in the white supremacy system declines. In the white supremacy system, culture, white skin and melanin pigmented skin, and their respective symbolic equivalents, always move opposite one another in value when the paper money is not backed by the gold standard. That gold has long been associated with black-skinned people in the collective white psyche is given further strong support in Greek mythology, specifically in Jason's search for the golden fleece. Jason hoped to obtain the golden fleece from the Colchians, whom the Greek historian Herodotus, according to Robert Temple's The Serious Mystery, discussed. My own idea on the subject was based first on the fact that they have black skins and woolly hair, and secondly, and more especially, on the fact that the Colchians, the Egyptians, and the Ethiopians are the only races which from ancient times have practiced circumcision. The phrase golden fleece is made up of two words associated with black people: gold, denoting black or brown skin, and fleece, denoting lamb's wool or kinky hair. The search for the golden fleece becomes the search for melanin. J.E. Surloff's Dictionary of Symbols says that the golden fleece is one of the symbols denoting the conquest of the impossible, or the ultra-reasonable. For white-skinned peoples, it is impossible to produce melanin or golden brown or black. Later, in the Middle Ages, Western man continued his perhaps unconscious search to make or acquire melanin through the Higley symbolic process called alchemy. Israel Regardie reveals in the Philosopher's Stone that the word alchemy is an Arabic term consisting of the article al and the noun chemi. The noun chemi refers to Egypt, whose Coptic or Ethiopian name is Kem. Alchemy would then be translated as the Egyptian matter, or that which pertains to Egypt. The term alchemy could also be translated and understood as the black matter, or that which pertains to the blacks, or that which the blacks are able to make or to do. Alchemy was essentially a symbolic process involving the endeavor to make gold, symbol of illumination and salvation. More specifically, the attempt was to convert lesser metals, such as silver and lead, into gold. The lesser metals can be translated as a less desirable skin color or white skin color. These highly obsessive and fruitless laboratory experiments eventually led to the development of the science of chemistry, whose very name comes from alchemy. Chemistry later became the basis for the modern science of genetics, in which Western man continues his efforts to make new genetic material, hoping to create life. Again, what is revealed is Western man's search for that which the Egyptians and the Colchians were able to achieve. The real mystery to the white psyche was that blacks were able, with their genetic material, to produce the gleaming satin, black and shining golden brown skin color through the presence of melanin in their skin, a pigment whites were unable to produce. However, then as now, whites deeply desired the ability to produce melanin-colored skin. It is of even greater symbolic significance that the special wisdom, knowledge, power, or abilities of the Egyptians which the European alchemists had hoped to duplicate was thought by Europeans to be associated with or contained in the Philosopher's Stone. The alchemists desperately sought to find or get a fragment of the Philosopher's Stone, as it was the prerequisite for turning lesser metals into gold. The Journal of Human Sexuality reported in pelvic congestion syndrome in men that the word stone in the language of the ancients means testicle. Testicles contain the genetic material. In the context of the decoded symbolism of gold, the alchemist's search for the Philosopher's Stone can be translated as the search for the testicles that contain the genetic potential to produce the satin black and golden brown skin color. The word stone, meaning testicle, even comes down to the present in such language expressions as stone egg, which is a colloquial term used for testicular egg. The foregoing discussion is presented in the hope of increasing professional understanding and appreciation of the world of symbols, logic, thought, and behavioral dynamics in which we presently find ourselves. This world creates the functional pathologies that our patients expect us to be able to solve. The central pathology of logic and thought spawned by Western civilization is the lack of white self-appreciation, predicated upon the fundamental inadequacy of the white genetic makeup. This lack of self-respect has spread wherever Western civilization has gone, and now infects all of the peoples on the planet. As we move through this period in which paper money and gold are increasingly difficult to obtain, it is now possible, with this symbolism decoded, to understand why blacks and other non-whites will continue to experience difficulty obtaining paper money and gold. The psychiatrists working with black patients will have the task of helping those patients understand paper money and gold as symbols in the culture and, most importantly, increase their sense of self-respect and self-worth, even in the face of the declining value of paper money and decreasing availability of gold. Indeed, blacks and other non-whites already possess that for which gold and paper monies have become the symbols. Psychiatrists working with white patients also will have the task of helping those patients understand paper money and gold as deep symbols in the historic Western culture and, further, as substitutes for white self-respect. Psychiatrists must help those white patients struggle to gain and maintain self-respect, despite their conditions as albino mutants in a world where the norm is to have skin coloration. The price of gold, or the number of paper dollars that will have to be spent for gold, will increase as long as black and other melanin pigmented peoples continue to exercise increasing self-respect and black, brown, red, and yellow power on Earth, relative to the power of white-skinned peoples. The price of gold, in terms of the numbers of dollars spent per unit of gold, will decrease only if white-skinned peoples are able to force skin-pigmented peoples back into their place, as designated in the white power equation of white over non-white, WNW.